This is the TV6 News at noon.
The showdown materialized. Pro-life demonstrators were arrested outside clinics where abortions are performed in Milwaukee. Good afternoon, I'm John Burling.
And I'm Joanne Williams. Pro-choice supporters were out before dawn today, protecting the clinics from the pro-life demonstrators. But arrests occurred this morning at only one clinic near 86th and West Brown Deer Road. That's where Julie Feldman is right now. Julie, what's happened?
One demonstrator told me this is history in the making. The Wisconsin Women's Health Care Center on Brown Deer Road is the site of a massive showdown over abortion, perhaps the biggest this city has ever seen. The pro-life mission in town this week chose this day to make its first big public statement, a day that pro-choice activists have been preparing for weeks. By 8:30 in the morning, some 500 pro-life demonstrators move on to the Wisconsin Women's Health Clinic on Brown Deer Road for the biggest confrontation the city has ever seen over abortion. Pro-life demonstrators break through a police line, then drop to their knees to be peacefully arrested.
They're killing babies. The people that are saving lives are being arrested, and they'll be open to kill babies.
A busload of police officers had to be brought in to handle the volume of arrests. And all the while, some 300 pro-choice demonstrators lock arms and chant and try their best to keep the clinic open.
We should have the right to choose, and that goes in a lot of different aspects. We have to maintain our rights. If we keep letting people take them away, we're not going to have rights.
And we've received conflicting reports on whether the clinic is actually open or not. In the newsroom, we got a fax from Missionaries to the Preborn, the group putting on the pro-life rally, which said that the group successfully closed this clinic down. But we called the clinic, and the people inside said they are open and doing business. John, Joanne?
Julie, what about the pro-life demonstrators? Are they going to another location today?
Well, pro-choice demonstrators are outside of 3 clinics. The third clinic, which has not yet been mentioned, would be Planned Parenthood. I asked Joe Foreman, one of the founders of Missionaries to the Preborn, if they'd be moving on to Planned Parenthood, and he said it's not in their plans, but of course, we know that those plans could change.
Okay, thank you. Julie Feldman reporting live. There were arrests today at another Milwaukee clinic. Early this morning, pro-life and pro-choice advocates met at the Imperial Health Center on West Capitol Drive. Pro-choice supporters ringed the clinic ready for a potential showdown, but only a couple dozen pro-life supporters turned out and stayed across the street. There were a couple of arrests. The pro-life supporters left a few minutes after they arrived. At a third location, pro-choice advocates guarded a clinic waiting for abortion protesters. But the showdown at the Planned Parenthood offices on North Jackson Street never came. More than 400 pro-choice supporters were there waiting for the pro-life demonstrators. The group calls itself the Milwaukee Clinic Protection Coalition. It escorted the clinic's patients inside and waited for any protests to take place. The supporters left that area after all of this morning's patients were inside Planned Parenthood. Authorities have made special arrangements to handle those people arrested in the demonstrations this morning.
Dan Jones is standing by at a processing center of sorts. He's at the Richard Street Armory. Dan?
John, Joanne, there had been concern over the past couple of weeks that all the arrests would clog up the court system, clog up the jails. Well, here's what they're doing to avoid that. All the people arrested are being brought here to the Richard Street Armory on Milwaukee's east side. It's an old Army National Guard facility that's still being used, but not in heavy use this week. So they're using it to process all these people. They're brought directly here after they're arrested. They are processed here, fingerprints taken, pictures taken. They'll have a judge out here this afternoon. He'll review the cases. Now, the people are being arrested so far on charges of disorderly conduct and trespassing. The judge will be out here. He'll review the case. He will say either pay, most likely he will say either pay the fine or I'll set a court date for you. He might also tell them to post some sort of bail and say if you don't post bail, then I'm going to hold you for a while. Now, so far there have been 60 people arrested, and half of them are children.
Right, we have approximately 50 people in custody at this location. Half are juveniles, and we're processing them through our normal booking system as best you can set up in a remote site. And we're basically preparing them for an appearance in the municipal court where they'll be arraigned, and they'll either make a judgment to hold these people for bail, and if they do get, in fact, held for bail, they'll be transported to other facilities in the county.
Okay, let's touch on a few important things. This facility is set up, I am told, to handle about 500 people if need be, and if this ever gets filled, they'll go to other facilities in southeastern Wisconsin. Also important to point out, 60 people have been arrested, Milwaukee police tell us. That is fewer than is arrested at many of the Saturday morning demonstrations downtown. So we have to keep that in perspective. We mentioned a number of children arrested. They will also be processed out here. The ones 14 and older will be handled by the same municipal judge who handles the adults. The younger ones most likely would be handled by a children's court judge. And one other thing we want to touch on, remember yesterday we talked about the temporary injunction that was issued. We will not really get into that until later in the week. Once somebody is arrested a second time, then they could be charged with something else because of that temporary injunction. But for now, at least, the charges will be, as they always have been, trespassing and disorderly conduct.
Dan, thanks very much. Dan Jones reporting live from the Richard Street Armory in Milwaukee.